Curtis A reached out to me, said make a theme song for my show. Said alright, just give me all the details, man. And my homie says he don't know. Well, if you're gonna pay me big bucks, cause I might should have something to say. He said, you know what I bring, I'm the customizing king, nothing else matters anyway. So is he gonna have guests? I don't know. Is he gonna go live? I don't know. What time will it be? What will you see? I'm pretty much in the dark, but I can guarantee you'll be customizing action figures, getting paint all on his fingers. It's art by Akerman. It's art by Akerman. Tips and tricks and conversation, sharing his gift with every nation. It's art by Akerman. Art by Akerman. You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Akerman.
Howdy, folks. It's time for another How'd They Do That. I've got another amazing artist from the community that is going to come on and share some tips and tricks on how they do certain things. If this is your first time seeing this, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you like hearing from different artists in the community, hear their kind of top secret strategies, this playlist is for you. We've had quite a few great artists on, and today is no exception because we've got somebody that's going to talk to us about doing some amazing flesh tones. We've got Noah Pratt, everybody. Noah, how you doing, sir?
Doing just fine and dandy on this lovely day. How are
Beautiful. You? I'm doing great. And there's only two of us, so I don't know that we're going to have to do too much, hand raising. We'll just,
okay.
We'll
we can still do that.
Yeah, we can. Yeah. So, listen, I know I kind of aired some grievances with you one time on Shooting the Shelf, because when I met you, when I first learned of Noah Pratt, like you were the Dio guy, right? Like you were the guy making the spinning tops for the things that you get on Amazon. You were making the like tiered things. You made a big Brit, like you were doing some cool like Dio stuff. And I'm like, oh, he's like the Dio guy, right? And then all of a sudden, like you one Legion's Con, you just show up, and all of a sudden you got all these painted heads. And not only were they painted heads, like they were fantastic. And I'm like, what the hell is this? He's stepping on my toes. He's like coming in here selling all these heads and stuff. Just like out of nowhere, all of a sudden you're like this amazing, head painter. So what's the deal, man?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry for stepping on your heads. To give you a serious answer, to a not so serious question, I think it more or less, that Legion's Con 21 was my first Legion's Con, and I had a few of the rotating bases. I didn't have my own table. You might be familiar with this guy named Len LaGuardia.
I've heard of him, yeah.
So this one dude had, and I don't remember how it happened. I don't want to say that I approached him and started bugging him, but he might have seen some things that I was sharing on in the Cabal, and just said, hey man, if you're looking for some space at a table, you can put some stuff up on my on my booth. As we know, Len, he doesn't mess around. He doesn't just have one table or anything like that. Yeah. So he had some space to fill, and also, I don't want to forget, I would be a bad friend to not mention Dennis Derby. He was like, he had me there as his booth babe, let's be honest.
All right.
And he's like, yeah, you can put a couple things on there. So I did. I had some rotating displays. Actually, Cookie, you might have heard of this guy, Cookie.
His birthday today, actually.
Yeah, happy birthday, Cookie.
Happy birthday, Cookie.
He was, at this point in time, this was before he worked for the Horsemen. He was Len's.
He's Len's babe. Friend Cookie. That's how we got to know Cookie. He's Len's friend Cookie.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And so Cookie ended up buying one of those displays from me. Shout out Cookie. But I had a few full customs there. I didn't sell anything. But the next year I decided, that was in 22, where when you and I had met in person. I had a large, kind of variety. There was the bridge, like you had mentioned. There was the turntables.
I got this, like, I don't think people are going to be able to see it from there. I'm trying to figure out where do I have it. It's in here. Oh, it's down there. One of those. It's a
Riser?
tiered thing, riser,
Yep.
but it's like all wood, and
Oh,
like you did like wood grain across the whole freaking thing, and it's like one of the coolest things I ever seen. I got my Templars on it right now. But yeah, it was like, because I mean, I've seen plenty of risers, but usually a lot of times people do like brick, because you can just do the kind of the line. A lot of people, I think people like do like with pencil and kind of
mm-hmm.
do the lines and cracks and things like that. But like, no, you like did it all in wood grain, and it is like so much detail on it. It's ridiculous.
I love it.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
remember that. I remember that. And, I was like, yeah, that's cool. This Curtis guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
uh,
and I get it. Those things take a lot more time than, like you can sit down and bang out a head and, I get, so totally understand that. But man, your stuff with that was awesome. If you ever get back to doing that, I think it'll be very popular at shows. So
thanks, man.
yeah.
Yeah, I do intend on getting back to that, and I do have. I've got some projects that I've been procrastinating on that I need to just finish.
Nice.
It's just it's so much easier, and I've said this before, to sit. I've got a lamp and a space like on my kitchen counter where I just I can be with the family and still do stuff, and
That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, so it's
Awesome.
nice.
Well, let's go ahead and pull up this slideshow and kind of get into this. All right, let me throw us
Look at
down
those
here at
guys.
the bottom. Yeah, this was actually a picture of you with what's the Pinky? Is that it?
Yeah, Pinky the pig.
Yeah. So I had to take out Pinky and then throw you in here with me. And I so when I do these pictures, I usually what I'll do is I go to the photo album on the Cabal and I look through Cullen's like Legion's Con photos,
Mm-hmm.
and I just find a picture of whoever I've got. I'm like, what's the best one? So I had this one, and then the other one I was kind of toying with. There's a picture of you and Wyatt first pulling up to intern, and you're just like sitting back all chill and stuff like this. And I almost did that one, but it made it look like you were punching me in the face because you had your hand out like this.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that might be a little too aggressive.
I don't
So
want to mix signals here.
yeah. So this is the one that I used for the pick. I think this is just absolutely beautiful. Not only the skin tones, which is mostly what we're going to talk about here, but I mean the eyes, the teeth, the lips, and that hair. Like the amount of just depth in the beard and the hair and stuff. And this is also a sculpt that you worked on, right? Didn't it?
Yeah, this was one that a project that I had kind of dreamt up and commissioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Monster Machine Studios, Jeremy Wilson.
Yeah, beautiful sculpt. I've seen it used a lot this year. I've actually got one of them. Little side note. So I got this and I was like, man, I really want to make this guy a pirate. And so I used some epoxy sculpt and I added an eye patch to him. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But I just haven't got around to painting it. So I've got one of these and he's got an eye patch. I just haven't painted it yet. So,
Awesome.
But yeah, this looks awesome. So tell us a little bit about, as you're painting a head, not just the flesh tone, but like, what is your process for painting a head? Like, what are the steps that you go through?
So I guess I'll start in the beginning. It starts at the priming for me.
Okay.
So I know other people do things differently, of course, and that's why we're here talking about this.
Yeah.
So my process is I typically start with the black, matte primer, and then I'll take a lighter shade like white or gray.
Are you real quick? Sorry, are you using spray can primer like Citadel or something else?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I do not, to this point, I have not successfully operated an airbrush. So
Okay.
everything is aerosols and brush.
Okay.
So Citadel is Chaos Black is kind of the go-to.
Yep.
Although recently I've discovered, I don't know if you've messed with the Pro Acryl aerosols at all.
I haven't yet. So I don't even know if I'm supposed to mention this, but I will. So our buddy Len that we were just talking about, he is kind of toying around with maybe kind of carrying some Pro
cool.
Acryl, some Monument Hobby stuff.
Yeah.
And so I have got some paints that are coming to me that I'm going to be testing out and trying. to let him know what I think about it, and then he's going to decide if that's something that he wants to carry on the website, because he really likes to make his shop kind of a one-stop shop. Like you can get heads there, you can get merchandise for the Cabal, you can get painted stuff, you can get figures there now. So yeah, so it's something I'm going to mess with, but I've heard really good things about the Monument Hobby stuff. I have tried the Army Painter one. The guy at the hobby store said this, because they were out of Chaos Black at the time, and the guy at the hobby store said, "Oh, we'll use this Army Painter one. It's the same stuff." He's like, "I use them both, and I can't tell a difference." Well, I can definitely tell a difference. It's not bad. Like, it's not like picking up a rattle can from Walmart, but it's still no Citadel. But you saying the Monument Hobby one's pretty good?
Yeah, very matte.
Okay.
That would be the difference that I would say from Chaos Black. I mean, let's be honest. The reason that we spend the money on these high end aerosols is because of the way that it flows, the way the paint lays. You don't want to obscure any of the details. A thin layer. You don't want to have to put on this big thick, base coat and just screw up your sculpt from the beginning. It's detrimental.
And you want it to be a nice dry surface that you can paint on. You don't want it to be tacky, and that's one of the things that I find with a lot of other primers, is that you end up with some tackiness that you definitely don't want. You want it to be, nice to the touch. Like, and the other good thing with Citadel is, like, after about 5 minutes after priming it, you're ready to go. It's not like you got to wait 24 hours or anything like that.
Yeah. So. I'll plug my good buddy Eric Miller here real quick and say that Eric says it's a really, I like this term that he uses. He says it's got more tooth. So
I just learned that a couple weeks ago. He posted something about having tooth, and I'm like, explain to me tooth. And he's like, it's like it grabs the paint, or it's like it's got like a little grit to it. So
yep, I love it. But so aerosol black, kind of a nice light layer. And then I'll go back in with a lighter color, either like a light gray or a white even. And I use, and you're probably familiar with the zenithal method.
Yeah, I mean, this is not going to air for another couple weeks, but this week that we're recording this, I've got a video dropping on zenithal priming, and I do it 3 different ways. I do it one with an aerosol can, and it's kind of like you're saying, like black first and white from up above. One with airbrush, and then you can actually do it with dry brushing too, where you just kind of do a downward. So
that's it. I mean, you guys watch that video, and then you'll know exactly how I do my priming.
So are you doing it with 2 cans? You're doing the dark and then above, or you're just doing dark and then dry brush?
I do 2 cans, so I'll typically just get the aerosol, and because I like the way that sometimes if your paint is high enough quality, you can almost get like to where you've got little speckles of that lighter color kind of blending into the darker stuff. It's a nice transition, and it tells you where your highlights should be, and it also shows through if your paints are thin enough. If you're thinning them properly, you'll be able to notice the difference in the I don't know what you would say, the brightness, I guess.
Yeah, there's a term for it that I can't think of offhand. If I think of it, I'll throw it out there. But it's basically creating those lights and shadows. Gradient?
Like you got, is it gradient?
Yeah, maybe that. I think there was another. There's like a painting term that I was thinking of, but to where, because like normally your light sources are above you, right? We got the sun, we got lights in our house or whatever that's above you, and so normally light is shooting downward, and so if you look at it like a face from underneath, you're going to see darkness. If you look at it from above, you're going to see lightness. So you're kind of creating that, even if you put a solid color over top of it, you're creating those differences in light and dark.
Absolutely.
That's a
good way to look at it.
So you do a little zenithal.
Yeah. And then it depends on what shade you're going for like a Caucasian tone, like what we're looking at on the screen. I pretty much have a straight up go-to for a triad. I work in triads. So just for the viewers, a triad is where you have your base color, and then you've got that's your mid-tone, and then you've got your highlights, which are brighter, and then you've got your darker shade as well. So I work in triads. As I was saying, for a Caucasian tone, my kind of go-to is I use I use Citadel for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as we were talking about Monument Hobbies, not to keep plugging them, I'm kind of moving towards
Plug
that.
away, man. What this is about telling people what you use. So yeah.
I'm starting to move towards the more of the pro acrylic paints. I just like the way that they flow. I like
Okay.
there's a lot of pigment in them.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't gotten too far into their flesh tones yet. I'm
Okay.
planning on moving that direction. But let's talk about what I do know.
Okay.
So I'll start with Bugman's Glow, which is a chaos, or sorry, it's a Citadel like a base coat.
Awesome. I will tell you because I used to use Bugman's Gold a lot, and the only pro acrylic paint that I have in my collection right now, until I get this stuff from Lynn, is one called Shadow Flesh
Okay.
that I got from Stephen Busciotti. Told me that's what he uses, and it's like Bugman's Glow, but I think a little bit better. But if you are going
Mhm.
to kind of transition to that pro acrylic, that Shadow Flesh is really nice. Just FYI.
I'll definitely check that out.
Okay.
So yeah, just a nice thin coat.
Mm-hmm.
I'll I will say that I don't ever do any painting without thinning any of the paints down.
Mm-hmm.
Or I mean, with Citadel, they pretty much all need it.
Are you using a wet palette, or are you just using a like a standard dry palette?
That's a good question. I was using a wet palette for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason that I'm not now is because, like I mentioned, it's the countertop space, and
Yep.
I don't want to, maybe at some point I'll pick up a smaller wet palette, but the one I have is pretty large.
Okay.
Um, I know that
Because you're
yeah, you
trying to
had,
work. I think you had mentioned you're trying to work where your family's at. Like you're still
Mhm,
trying to have family time, but also process this. So you're
yep,
making do with the space that you've got, basically.
exactly, yep.
Gotcha.
So I guess to the workaround there
Mm-hmm.
is I've got a little plastic plate that I
Mm-hmm.
use, and I'll just add water and just do wet mixing right on there, and just kind of get the proper viscosity that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it's simulating a wet palette without actually doing it. So what I'll do is I'll put a nice thin coat of that Bugman's Glow down, making
Mm-hmm.
sure to get in all the cracks in the little ears and everything, because
Mm-hmm.
it's almost inevitable. When you go back and look at the next layer, you might see a little spot, and you're like, oh, there's a little white or a little black on there. I need to, So
And just as a heads up for folks that may not know what Bugman's Glow is, that's more of like a reddish kind of
yep,
color, right? Yeah. Let me.
it's hard to see, but
Yeah. Kind
it's
of
kind
has
of
a. Yeah, like a little. It's like skin tone, but quite a bit more red, right?
yeah, yep.
Yeah.
So
So
that
that's getting
is
kind of those blush areas and like the blood under the skin and all that kind of. It's that nice base that you're talking about.
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And that so get your nice thin coat of that Bugman's Glow on there,
Mm-hmm.
making sure to pay attention to all the like I said behind the ears, and that's typically the spot. You got to wash
Yep.
behind the ears.
Yeah,
um,
and just keep in mind, folks, like like he talked about the zenithal priming. That's why he keeps emphasizing thinning your paints, because you don't want to just cover all that stuff that you just did like with an
mhm,
opaque layer of this stuff to where you can't see the lights and darks. Like you did that lights and darks for a reason, so
mhm.
you want to make sure that this is nice and thin, so some of that is still coming through and you're still seeing the transition of the lightness and darkness.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we take a lot of time, and the sculptors work really hard on these sculptures.
Mhm.
So let's not obscure those little details that
There
they
you
give
go.
us. So it's multifaceted. Um,
I
then
did find that term that I was talking about earlier. It's called value contrast. Very
ah
very fancy term,
yeah,
but it just means difference between light and dark in the same color spectrum. So
yeah, that makes a
yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah.
There's a lot of value in that contrast.
There you go. All right. So
Uh,
Bugman's Glow.
yep. So then we got the Bugman's Glow down. Typically, what I'll do there after that is I'll waste no time. As soon as that's dry, I'll go in with a layer paint, and this
Okay.
is Cadian Flesh Tone. So
Okay.
you can see up against my skin, that's kind of like this is my mid tone. So this is going to be
Okay.
the I guess the one that's doing most of the heavy lifting
Yep.
for the paint for the sculpture. So that is the Cadian flesh tone. I'll go. What I do with that is I try not to do like a full on coat.
Okay.
What we're doing here is and there's probably a better answer for it or a better term, but I call it wet dry brushing. So
Okay.
I know it seems like an oxymoron, but just essentially what you're doing is you're just getting you're making sure that your brush isn't dry.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some water on there.
Mm-hmm.
Just grab a little bit of paint and take it over to a paper towel or your thumb
Mm-hmm.
or the back of the model or inside, under the beard, wherever, whatever
Mm-hmm.
you're going to use for a little test and
Mm-hmm.
see what it looks like. Because you don't want to apply too much paint, but you
Mm-hmm.
also want to make sure that there's enough on there to where it's not just water and you're wiping off your base coat that you just put on there.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's kind of, this is where you start blending. So what I do is I try to leave the recesses, just like any dry brush. You're leaving the
Mm-hmm.
recesses that to where you can see that base
Mm-hmm.
coat in there, and you can see like on the forehead how there's like those darker lines, and
Mm-hmm.
in the crevices in the ears and everywhere. You want to capture those shadows because that's actually, I mean, that's what it looks like in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The deeper recesses are going to they're going to retain that coat from below, so it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
little darker.
So you're trying to hit the more of the raised areas at this point.
Yep.
And are you when you're brushing this on, are you doing it in a downward manner, or are you just kind of like all over side to side? Like
Just
what?
willy
Okay.
nilly.
Okay.
Use all the axes.
Okay.
The only thing that I'm keeping track of is, again, you're making sure that your paint is thin enough.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're not putting too heavy, too thorough of a layer on there, because you don't want it to be all one tone.
Gotcha.
And so yeah, just keeping track of that, getting that mid tone down. That's
Okay.
where we're at.
All right. Next
Um,
step.
the next step is typically what I'll do is that's where I'll start painting some of the hair and things like that.
Okay.
So I'll make sure that I'm putting down, again, the same way that I do my skin tones is how I'm going to look at doing the hair. So you have
Okay.
your mid tone, your highlight, and your how shade. Is that the right word?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I do there, I'm just going to block out in this particular picture that we got here. I just use a
Mm-hmm.
mid gray, just block out everything. So and the reason I do that is just so that everything can kind of come together at the same time. I know people do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about how I do it.
For sure. Yeah.
So what I'll do then, so now you have your primer, you have your base coat, you have your mid-tone on the face, and you have your base on the hair, the beard,
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab a wash. Typically, I'll try to use like the flesh washes.
Okay.
I use Citadel for the most part. I do have the Pro Acryl like different washes that I've been using, and I
Mm-hmm.
do like those a lot. But here, what we're going to do is we're not necessarily going to do like an all over coat with this. What we're going to do is we're going to hit the edges for the most part. We're going to hit the recesses. So right now, what we're doing is we're accentuating the dark, the crevices.
So you're like framing the face where the hairline is, and then
Yep.
also getting anything that's like deeper crevices, like underneath
Yep.
the eye, you like that forehead
mouth.
ridge.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. All of that. And you can actually see like it's in the hair, like that wash is
Yeah,
in the
I
hair.
love that, and I think that's a step that a lot of folks miss because a lot of times there's a very hard transition from the skin to the hair, like it's
Mm-hmm.
completely different color. I love that it starts blending in because if you look at a normal person, like right at the beginning of the hairline, you still see some of their like the skin underneath the hairline,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a great like gradient. You're using that word earlier. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great gradient there, like going from the skin into the hair that looks super natural.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Any little cheats or tweaks I can do, I'm going to keep those in my, at the ready.
Do you have
Um,
a main go-to as far as that wash goes?
like for the most part, like if I'm going on the skin, if I'm
Mhm.
focusing on the skin parts, I'm going to use their like what is that? The flesh wash, the Citadel
There's
one.
there's a Reichland, I
Yeah,
think a dark something.
that's the one I
Reichland,
use.
I think, is the one I hear most.
Yep.
So,
That's
okay.
the one that I use for the most part. But when it comes to like the hair and stuff like that, it might be like their sepia, or it might
Oh,
be
okay.
their earth shade. Just whatever. I mean, depends on if the character is going to be more grubby or not.
And I'm sure like what color hair they've got. Like
Yep.
obviously with this one being white, you don't need as dark a color as maybe if it was transitioning to black hair or something like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And you can see like in the beard and everything,
Hmm.
this guy's going to have some stains
Hmm.
around his mouth and things like that, and under his nose, and his hair is not going to just be this clean like gray tone.
Yeah.
He's got some stains. You've all seen it, right? There's maybe a white dog or something, and he's
Yeah.
got some scruff around his mouth. That's
Uh,
never white. It's always stained and dark.
right.
We're using the white dog method on this guy.
Love
Uh,
that. Okay.
so then, so although we are kind of messing with the hair a little bit, we're still going to focus on the skin because
Hmm.
that's kind of the highlight here.
So
Um,
you were just getting the start on the hair, kind of framing it, getting the
mhm.
wash on, but you're not actually doing like the highlighting or any of that yet.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
because I'm lazy and I don't want to be masking things off.
Right. Yeah.
So this is all in the process that I have is set up so that I don't have to mask anything or
Okay.
do anything special. Um, you know, then we've got the washes on the face and everything. The
Hmm.
next thing I'll do is I might go back in with my midtone.
Hmm.
My For this guy, I
The
use the Cadian
the
flesh tone
Cadian.
again. Yep.
Okay.
So I'll just go back in and just do that high level, do a little bit lighter than I did in the previous step. As
Okay.
every step that we're doing, we're going lighter and lighter with the paint application to where
Hmm.
we're just imagine you have like a hill, right? You're
Hmm.
covering less and less of that hill with the paint. The base coat, we're doing everything down to the bottom of that mountain. Uh, as we go, we're kind of building layers so that way you see that different progression of
Yeah,
the
lighter and
colors.
lighter as you get to the more raised surfaces. Are
Yep.
you, as far as like brushing technique, are you at this point when you're just kind of touching up areas and stuff, are you using like a stippling approach where you're kind of tapping it? Are you using brush strokes? Like what's kind of the method here?
So with this, I'm probably using either a small dry brush
Hmm.
or just some smaller like stiffer brush that I have.
Okay.
And for this, I do have some more expensive dry brushes that I use, like the
Hmm.
makeup style brushes and things like that.
Yeah.
But some of my best brushes that I have are just crappy little things that I stole
Yep.
from my kids or whatever. Like
Yeah.
the heavy lifters. It's funny how that can be. But yeah, so just like I said, I'm not worried about putting any details on the hair yet. I haven't
Hmm.
taken time to do any of that. So I feel a little better about maybe getting a little of that flesh color into the hair because
Okay.
it's only going to be on the more superficial, on the higher levels.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to go in there and I'm gonna get that base tone back down to try and knock some of that wash, like tame that wash down because you don't. If you have like a distinct line where that wash is, it's less believable.
Hmm.
Um, so just kind of cleaning it up a little bit.
But as far as like how you're are you, like I said, are you like stroking? Are you
Yep.
you tapping it or what?
Yeah. So
Okay,
use
so you're
that
kind of
small
going to
dry
go
brush.
over with like a dry brush or a stiffer brush and just kind of going over those areas and hitting the really raised surfaces.
Hmm.
Okay,
Exactly. So like
gotcha,
the forehead and the cheeks, because I don't want to have any of that wash showing through on that.
gotcha.
Um, and I might take a little bit at that point in time. I might take a little bit of my highlight, my
Hmm.
my brightest skin tone that I use, which is what is this Kislev
Okay,
flesh, and
yep,
you can see that against my hand here that it's quite bright.
yeah.
So that's going to be the highlight that I use for that triad, and I might mix a little bit of that in with my mid-tone to just try and create that variation.
Gotcha. So you're kind of taking some of the Kislev, some of the Cadian,
Cadian,
and
yep,
mixing them together and kind of getting a blend that is in between them.
yep, and
Gotcha.
then that's just gonna, like I said, that'll be my just cleaning up the wash.
Hmm.
Um, once you've got that done, then I might go back in with some more washes. I spend a lot of time with doing little details and things like that, probably more than anybody would ever care about. But that's just how we get it. So
Yeah, I noticed like your like the nose, the cheeks a lot of times, and there's even we'll show some here in a little bit that have like liver spots and stuff on it. Like yeah, you definitely hit some extra details. Obviously, this sculpt has kind of that scar on it and stuff that you also have to work on.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, in the end, I do this because I enjoy doing it.
Hmm.
It is nice that come Legion's Con or whatever, you can set up a booth and sell these things.
Oh yeah,
But I'm just doing it. I'm doing it like this because this is the way that I want to do it.
yeah.
If I wanted to try and make the most money out of doing this thing, I'd probably skip some of these steps. But that's not what I enjoy, so I'm not going to do that. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
so here's a couple other one. I love that just the wild color of that like teal haired one. Like that's just so
yeah,
cool. I love that.
I love it.
But yeah, kind of all the same steps here. Now the one on the right looks like it ended up with a little bit darker skin tone
Hmm.
overall than the one on the left. So
Yep.
that's just as you're blending those colors, the Cadian and the Kislev, you're maybe using a little less Kislev on the darker one and a little bit more Kislev on the lighter
Hmm.
one, kind of thing.
Yep. Exactly. And these could have been. I tend to do like batch painting, so
Uh,
that way I spend less time cleaning brushes and stuff
yeah.
like that. I'm lazy. Let's be honest.
Well, I mean, it's efficiency, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
it's same thing you were talking about, like doing part of the skin tone, then doing the hair, and then going back to the skin tone. Because what you're doing is you're making it to where, like you said, you don't have to mask off anything, but you're also
Hmm.
making it to where you don't have to do as much touch up afterwards when you went into a certain area. And now you got to go back to because, like, what I typically do is I'll do all the flesh tone, like complete it, then I do the hair, and then if I screw up on the hair and go into the flesh tone now I got to redo that part of the flesh tone and I got to remember what blend that I had of
Hmm.
whatever colors, So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what you're doing is actually very smart. I like that.
Yeah. Thanks, man. And another, like if I was to run in a situation like that, instead of trying to match that skin tone, maybe just
Hmm.
make it into something different. Maybe it's a little off. Maybe it's a liver
Okay.
spot. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just
That's
a
cool. I
imperfection
like
in the
that.
skin. Um, but uh, so where are we at? So we've got back to we cleaned up the wash
Hmm.
with that. What is it? The Cadian and the Kislev. A
Hmm.
little bit of a mix there. And then I'll go back in, like I said, with the maybe different shades or whatever, and then I'll start doing some spots, doing some different things, just to try and create a little bit of variance in the
Okay.
skin. Just because, like, if you look at your hand or your face or whatever, there's
Hmm.
there's different things going on there.
Yeah.
But so then we've started to work on some of the details and things like that.
Hmm.
Then, eh, can you go back to the
Yeah. Yeah.
very first
Absolutely.
one?
Oh,
Go back
sure. Yeah.
because there's something here that's really obvious that doesn't show as well in some of the other ones.
Okay.
You can see at my I've kind of used this as an analogy. If this guy didn't have a beard, I
Hmm.
typically like to put a little bit of stubble in there, like a 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you end up with this Neapolitan ice cream style like face. So
Okay.
as you can see, the top he's got the vanilla, in the middle
Yeah.
he's got the strawberry, and on the bottom he would have that chocolate. It's that
I like that. I'm actually
Neapolitan.
writing that down.
So as you can see, if say it's summertime and you
Yeah.
take a real good look at my face, you're
Hmm.
going to see my nose is quite a bit darker or maybe a little more red. My cheeks are going to be more red. My forehead's
Hmm.
probably not so much because, as you know, I wear a ball cap a lot. But even if you didn't, it would kind of be that way. I take advantage of that in my painting and just turn the volume up quite a bit, so that it's a lot. It almost hits you over the head with it, but
Hmm.
it tends to help add a little bit of realism in my opinion. So, how do we do that? What we do is we go back to our friend Bugman
Hmm.
and we mix a little bit of that into our midtone,
Hmm.
and and then just go in there and kind of hit the cheeks up, hit the nose up a little bit, and those details that you already put in there are going to show through because we're just doing a really light layer.
Gotcha.
Don't forget the ears. Hit the ears up and everything. So
Is
the
it
ears are a
is
little
it really
pinkish.
thin at this? Like, is it almost like a glaze at this point that you're adding to the nose and cheeks and stuff?
Yeah, it can be. Like on
Okay.
this one, like the paint, you can see that there's quite a bit more red in it. So that
Mm-hmm.
one might have been a little more still opaque yet. But if you
Mm-hmm.
skip to the next one,
Okay.
um, then you can see the guy on the left.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of his skin tone's a little more, I don't know, consistent.
Yeah.
Where the one on the right here, you can see his nose. He looks like he's a heavy
He's a little bit
drinker.
more weathered. Yeah.
Yeah, he enjoys his whiskey or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that you could end up with some variance there. But yeah, that's how you end up with those warm tones. Like make sure you hit the cheeks, the ears, and the nose are the
Yeah, I
main
mean,
parts.
there's so much depth in your skin tones. Like you definitely see all the different, shadows. Like under the eyes, you can see it's a little bit darker. Like under the, in the cheek areas and stuff. And I love that it's not all the same either. Like all these faces that we're looking at, even though they're Caucasian looking dwarves, they're not exactly identical. So that's cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. And yeah, so at that point, then we've got the rosy cheeks. I'll even take some of this Kislev flesh, my highlight,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'll just to create more of a difference between the two spots. I'll
Hmm.
just kind of go in and hit the forehead a little bit with just more dry brush. Get the
Gotcha.
forehead, make it like that pasty white, like he's been wearing a helmet,
We
all
had that
day.
on the original, right? Yeah, this one you can see it's quite a bit lighter at the top. So that's the vanilla of the
That's
Neapolitan.
yep,
Yeah.
vanilla.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So
All
he's
right.
been wearing a helmet, and his hair is
Yeah.
a little wild and crazy. So maybe that part doesn't see a
Hasn't
whole
seen
lot
as
of
much
sun.
sun. He's got a
Yeah,
little farmer forehead tan.
that's right.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, I love the way that this dude came out, the sculpture.
Yeah.
Look at his teeth. Can you just appreciate looking at those nasty little teeth he's got?
They're
Um,
cool. I like it a lot. Yeah.
just the
I mean, it doesn't. It's not perfect. And by not being perfect, it is perfect. If that makes sense.
yeah, he's
So
just a nasty little dude. I
yeah.
love him. Uh,
Yeah. And
the
I just love that, you've painted this up so many different ways and created different looks with the same sculpt. It's super cool.
Thanks,
So,
man. Yeah, I enjoy it too.
and then I did pull up a couple other ones here
Yeah.
as well. And after you're done with the skin tone and stuff, like your eyes are amazing. Like this one with the hood, like that looks so realistic the way that you've done that. Like it looks like real leather. The fact that you've got the different colors, the different tones in there and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, Super cool.
I love that dude. Um, I've been on a kick lately, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna come clean. I've been just on a kick to try and put everybody into a hood. So
Nice.
I have a theory that if something is cool, if you put a hood on it, then
Yeah.
it'll look cooler. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong.
No,
Is that
that's
cooler?
definitely cool. Yeah. I mean, until we get some ball caps that we can turn backwards on Mythic Legion heads, this is definitely the best way to go.
Uh,
Here's a couple other ones that I pulled up. That leprechaun sculpt that came from Euro Legions this year. I've seen so many amazing paint jobs, and this is just another one of those. And I love the way that this one came out as well. Like you did a great job, on the whole thing. The hat looks amazing, but that skin tone and the eyes, man, those eyes just look like they're peering into somebody's skull. It's
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
super cool.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun
Um,
doing that one.
yeah, it's a good one. Now here's one I wanted to kind of touch on. I've got these two up because they're a little bit different than the other ones we looked at. Because these guys are a little older. They got the little kind of freckling and liver spots and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So I'm guessing kind of similar start to this as the other ones that we've talked about. But as you're finishing this, you're making these kind of individual, and you're creating details where no details exist. So there's
Hmm.
not like a sculptural spot for these things. You're just being creative at this point. So tell us a little bit about what that process looks like.
Yeah, and that's exactly, it's a good point in the conversation to bring that up, because that'd be the next part of the process. Basically, it's I'm just taking a little bit of wash on my uh, brush,
Mm-hmm.
find a fine one, and then just kind of pick out little areas. If say, and I mentioned how, like, sometimes, if I go over on the hair and get onto the skin, I might turn that into a spot or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing goes with any imperfections in the print. Lord knows that, sometimes it's unavoidable. If you buy it, you might buy a part and there might be a hole smack dab on the forehead.
Yep.
You can fill that in with some epoxy. You can sand it. You can do a bunch of different things to try and hide that. Or for me, lazy, smart, I don't know what you want to
That's
call it,
now a
whatever.
freckle or a liver
Yeah,
spot. Okay.
exactly. He's got a divot in his head, and let's exploit that.
Okay.
And I think that might have been the start of that. Just the idea that, all right, what is this going to be? Okay, let's put a few more in there and make it look like it's on purpose.
This one on the right, with the long beard, I swear I looked at this several times because it does not look like a head sculpt. It does not look like somebody painted this. This looks like you took a picture of some old guy and you shrunk it down, put it, like, photoshopped it onto a Legion's figure, and then said, "Hey, I painted this." And I'm like, I don't believe you, Noah. Like, this does not look like a paint job. This looks like some old guy's head that you just photoshopped on a Legion. Like, it is so realistic. Man, if you didn't have the figure there, if it was just the head and you showed that to somebody, I don't know that they would think that that's a painted, figurehead. Like, it's so freaking good.
Thanks, man. I'm just gonna say that Seba, from
Mm-hmm.
Planetary Dogs,
Mm-hmm.
that dude does an amazing job of
Oh
sculpting
yeah.
these things. But yeah, I've seen a lot of different variations on these things and a lot of really cool ones. I decided that I was gonna take this guy and have some fun with it. So I've painted this sculpture probably 15, 20 times,
You
just
know,
over the course of
it's a
time.
good point that you make, because we're living, and I know this is going a little bit longer than normal, but I think we're having a good conversation. So I don't mind if you don't mind.
No, I'm good.
But I think there's something to be said for the fact that, 3D printers have been getting cheaper and cheaper, and you got a lot of people that are just kind of doing the from home game, and there's nothing wrong with that. But um, you can get like a free STL file you could just look up, STL file on a dwarf head and get it and do it. But there's something to be said for the art of sculpting in ZBrush, and some of these really amazing sculptors, whether it's Saba, whether it's Emil, Walter DeMarco. I know, Gia has been doing a lot of good stuff. Jason Rodriguez. So, there's some really good sculptors in our community, and it makes a huge difference when you're painting these things and you've just got that little extra layer of detail, the wrinkles in the skin, the details in the beard and stuff, that as you're going over it, it just catches the brush in the right way. I've said several times, like, a good sculptor can make a painter look even better, and a good painter can make the sculptor look even. It's a very symbiotic relationship. But and that's not to say don't, the folks that are selling from their PMs and doing stuff out of their kitchen. I mean, maybe don't do it out of your kitchen. It's a little unsafe. But I'm
Use
not
proper
saying don't buy
PPE.
from those folks. But there is something to be said for a really good sculptor and having those details when you go to paint these things.
Yeah, I second that.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about this one from Saba. I mean, just looking at all, like, the individual hairs on the mustache and the beard, and it's not all symmetrical. That's the
Hmm.
other thing. Like, a lot of times when you get like a cheap STL file or free one or whatever, you'll get everything looks the same and it looks identical. It looks like they just turned on the symmetry tool, did one
Hmm.
side, the other side was the exact same. But that's not how people look. Like, people are kind of messy.
No.
And so I love the little individual details on each side. And sometimes you'll have like one eye that's slightly bigger than the other, or whatever. Like,
Hmm.
all that stuff is really cool. I love it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
And then this is the last one I had for the slideshow. I love the paint job. The first of all, the whole figure, like, dwarves and cosmic, for some reason, like, I'm not. I'm not the hugest dwarf fan. I don't have anything against them. I mean, I don't like dwarf fans as much, but the dwarves themselves, they're all right. But cosmic dwarfs, for some reason, I love cosmic dwarfs. And this guy, I mean, you got the little cigar there, you got that the scar that's all like he's got like the stitches or staples or whatever on there. The glow effect that you did on that pauldron. Like this, I just love this, and I just wanted to kind of finish on this one. So,
Thanks, man.
any thoughts, or how did this one come together?
This one was fun. I did this one while on vacation with my family. I don't know
Mm,
what that says about me as a family member. No, we rented a cabin in the Wisconsin woods for a week, and so I brought some stuff to paint. No, this was my first time trying the object source lighting,
hmm
that lighting effect that's on the pauldron there.
hmm
Yeah, this sculpt is a fun one. Another Seba sculpt. I have fun with the wounds and things like that, so I tried to pay special attention to that. Like when the sculptor takes the time to put a feature on there, I feel like it's my duty as a painter to pay homage to that.
Yeah.
And and so yeah, just making sure that it's real dark inside the crack, and then maybe
I
some.
love that, like it radiates some red into the
It looks
skin. Like you
infected.
did such a great job. It's like super dark in the middle, and then it starts because that's what you would see with a wound.
Hmm.
Like if you had a wound that was in the process of healing,
Hmm.
you would see that kind of dark scabbiness in the middle, and then as it goes into the regular part of the skin, you would see a little bit more reddish kind of irritation
Yeah,
area.
totally.
And you nailed it, man. This looks perfect.
Thanks, man. Yeah, just that's with anything with like you mentioned dioramas.
Hmm.
Now we're talking about painting figures. Just make it make sense. Like
Yeah,
that's all it is. Is think about how it would look like in the real world. Maybe grab some source material, take a look at some photos. Um,
love some source material. Yeah.
yeah, and just have fun with it. Like if there's one little detail that you can pick out from the way something looks in real life, if you can just incorporate that into your paint job, I think
Mhm.
that you're just going to be happy with the results.
Awesome. Well, that is it. I know we ran a little bit long, but I really had fun on that. Not only did I have fun on that discussion, I think I learned quite a bit. You know, I think your flesh tones are the best in the business. You know, I know there's other people that do really great stuff. For years I've sworn by Stephen Bisciotti because he does a really
I
good
love
job
Steven.
of matching the flesh tones to specific, you know, what, like he'll, if you go buy from his table, he'll say this is specifically for the deluxe Legion Builder
Hmm.
Barbarian, or this one was made for Vetus, you know, or whatever.
Hmm.
And he does a really good job of just matching those tones and stuff. But when it just comes to overall cool skin tones and depth and realistic, like that one that we looked at that, you know, like I said, it looks like a picture of an old man. Man, your stuff is so good. It's fantastic.
Thanks,
So
buddy.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
I almost say maybe you don't need to go back to the Dias. Like, you know, you're doing pretty good.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
but yeah, that was really insightful. I think I picked up a few things there too. Hopefully everybody else did. Hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Any other last minute tips for folks as they're working on stuff like this?
Yeah, spend the money on good quality like paints. I think
Mm,
if you're gonna do it, it's not worth doing half measures.
there you go.
Spend the money.
Sounds good. What about? I did have one more question for you. When you're done, do you seal your stuff, and if so, what do you use for that?
Oh yeah, good question. So I use the Mr. Super.
Okay,
I use it's their matte sealer. Just
gotcha.
maintaining that distance
Hmm.
from the piece that you're painting is going to be critical.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you end up with kind of a sheen to it.
Hmm.
Don't do too heavy of a coat, just enough to where you're not going to rub stuff off when you're handling it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then I know I picked up from you because I've been using it ever since. Because a lot of people were using what was it? It was one of the testers ones, I think, for glossing. But you had got me on the Citadel Art Coat.
Oh
Love
yeah.
that stuff. Like for eyes, lips, you know, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, just creates this real marbleized, glossy look. Love
Hmm.
that stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely.
I I've got the Mr. Super Clear gloss and matte, and depending on what I'm working on, if I want something, there's sometimes where I'll just flat out use the gloss. That's not very often, but if I really wanted to have that look, and sometimes I just want it between the matte and the gloss. And what I'll do is I'll spray the gloss on it, and then I'll spray the matte over, and it brings it back down a little bit.
Oh,
so,
okay.
But yeah, I love Mr. Super Clear. So good. So
yeah, I was thinking about like that would be cool if they had like a satin finish. I wonder if they do.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I usually just do the one and then do the other one over it. And if it still looks a little too glossy, I'll just hit it with the matte again, and then boom, it's right there. So, but I also use a lot of So-Flat paints, and if you use So-Flat paints and then you don't seal it at all, like it is very matte, like very matte. So even if like you're talking about like if you're spraying it a little bit closer on the matte Mr. Super Clear, it adds that little sheen like you were talking about, but that actually brings it back up to kind of Legion's looking, level. So that's good. But if you were using something that a paint that has already kind of a, maybe a satin look anyway, and then you spray that, you might get it a little too glossy. So just something to be aware of. So yeah, good pointer for sure.
Yeah, like that.
Awesome. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you picked up some cool lessons. I know I did. If you end up, using this method and you start, painting some dwarf heads or any kind of human heads, and you have learned from this, make sure to tag Noah, tag myself. We'd love to see what you create. That's kind of the whole purpose of this segment. Yeah, thanks, Noah. I'm gonna put you backstage. I'm gonna close out the show, and then I'll be right back with you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right. What another awesome guest. Like I said, hopefully you guys picked up some good stuff on that. That was really fun. That was a lot of cool stuff. So that's really all I got to say. So until next time, keep creating, folks.